Hi everyone, my name is Loretta and I'm the author of An Escape to Paris. It's a book I just released a few weeks ago. And so I thought to do a short video to talk about why I wrote the book and the inspiration behind it and eventually read a few pages. So personally, I have always been big on real stories. I've always been big on documenting the stories that we experience on a daily basis. The mundane stories, the complicated stories, some of the craziest stories I've heard in life were not even fiction, they were real life stuff. And when people say reality is stranger than fiction, 100%, I 100% agree. So it could be as simple as men arguing at a newspaper stand, or as complicated as somebody who left her husband to marry somebody and then the person she left her husband for died. It's just crazy stuff every single step of the way. And for a very long time, I had made it my life's mission to some degree to document some of these stories, whether they are simple or whether they are crazy. And that's what this book is about. So this book is my first attempt, An Escape to Paris is my first attempt at documenting my story. It could have been my story, it could have been any other person's story, but An Escape to Paris is documentation of myself at the age of 24. I was just quitting my job in finance. I had done 3 years in private equity, and I woke up one day after 3 years only working in finance, and I said I was going to quit to write professionally. And it was chaotic. So this book documents, the emotional stress, the anxiety that I had to deal with first. And on the other hand, because it was my first time leaving Nigeria, it was my first time on a plane as well. There was a lot of wanderlust. And I decided that whenever I was ready to start my writing career, I was going to start from this book. So I'm going to read a few sections of the book. And I'm going to start with the prologue. No matter how far you go, you would always return to bread. I stood a few paces away, watching the other guests of the hotel do it. First, you slam the knife hard into the baguette and then you move it across fiercely, front and back until you cut deep and rip it apart. Even though I had now gotten first-hand lessons on how to butcher a French bread, I still fell short when it was my time for me to have a go at it. At the breakfast buffet stand in Ibis Styles Hotel. The bread stared back at me in disgust, as if to say I was disrespecting it, with my lame excuse for a stab, and in defiance refused to break. While it was fascinating watching Frenchmen break bread, then butter it only to break it again with their teeth, the real question here was so clear, and it bothered me while no one was asking it. Why is the bread in Paris so damn hard? My parents had returned to our table unimpressed with the layout of the buffet. I, on the other hand, had done what every average millennial would do, taking a piece of everything that looked good in order to create the perfect cliche Instagram breakfast buffet table. First, a small round white ceramic bowl of diced pineapples, apples, mangoes, and watermelon, 2 slices of cheese, some sausages, a plain croissant, some other bread-like pastry, a large yellow banana that looked so perfect it did not seem organic at all, a packaged sweet yogurt pack, and a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice that was such a perfect golden amber color that it also couldn't possibly have come out of the farm like those we have in Nigeria. And to confirm my thoughts, it was seedless. Good morning from my table to yours, I posted to my Instagram stories alongside the photo of my breakfast layout. When I was done, I proceeded to eat. Camera always eats first. Hard, dry. Is this normal? My dad concluded that this was going to be a lame vacation as far as our complimentary hotel breakfast was concerned, but I was giving it a chance. It was good enough, save for when I tried some fruits I don't remember enough to describe. Eating a fruit whose name you don't know is oddly pleasant or displeasing, depending on the quality of your taste buds and the taste of the thing itself. As you place it in your mouth, you don't know what to expect, like kissing someone for the first time. The fruit tingled in my mouth and left a confusing aftertaste that lingered. I'm immune to a lot of things, but poorly tasting food was not one of them. I made a mental note to explore with caution. But I was in fact going to explore. First, because I needed to set myself free from the mental noise I came to Paris with. I needed to taste freedom, not just between my lips, but in the air that I breathed through my nostrils. I wanted my eyes to hungrily feed of the city of Paris. I was going to be so in awe of the new world I had now stepped into, albeit briefly, soaking in the experiences and taking as much of its essence that I could take back home with me. This book has taken over 6 years in its making. I may never have come out had I not sworn it to be the debut of whatever my writing journey turns out to be. An Escape to Paris is a time capsule of the closest version of what reality was for me at the age of 24, with all the fragments of that reality documented through notes, recordings, Instagram posts, and a manuscript I began writing while still on this trip, my first. Here, I explored the journey of losing, seeking, and finding myself in the ways that I knew how to. Through the sequence of events of the period, I explore self-inflicted mental confinement, escapism, and what it means to find solutions outside of ourselves. In writing this collation of data of a short period in Paris, following what seemed like an intense period in Lagos, I recreate an experience of a well-romanticized adventure, aided by a city that is all too good at being the object of fantasy. It's about adventure. It's about exploring food, Frenchmen, or historical monuments. It's about traversing walls and garnering both historical and cultural knowledge, while also escaping into a new world where bread apparently is hard. So this book is a combination of two things. On one hand, it's wanderlust. I explore Paris, historical monuments, various cultural observations, and pretty much as many things as I could pick from my stay there, which was for a period of, was just a few days. On the other hand, it's very deep emotional reckoning. I talk about things like escapism to booze or whatever vices, escapism to whatever it is that requires me leaving my natural state, to want to run away from whatever my natural state is and then moving to a new world. And somewhere going through the plots from the beginning to the end, I am able to balance both, a literary escape and real shit, really. So I'm going to read another section of my book, and I think this part just speaks more around how observant I am in this world of mine of storytelling. This is page 38 of An Escape to Paris. Recounting, France is a cozy community located in Ile-de-France, one of the closest communities to Charles de Gaulle Airport. In the 15-minute drive from the airport to the small village, I'd fallen in love with the serenity. It was so quiet that you could hear birds chirping. There were scarcely any vehicles on the clean, tarred streets leading to our hotel. Recounting had a suburban feel to it, with its lush, well-maintained flower beds and gardens leaving a diverse palette of blooming flowers, purple, bright reds, and soft pastels. It had quaint streets, traditional houses that looked like cottages with their brick exteriors, and small shops that gave it a local but immensely authentic feel. So even when we got off the airport shuttle to Ibis Styles Hotel and were told that we couldn't check in until a few hours, we were more than happy to spend our morning touring the community before joining in the breakfast buffet. For the first time in months, I felt alive. My mind released from its constant lament. I was immersed in a different kind of beauty, and my senses were bombarded with a thrilling rush for new discoveries. It was just the first day, and various things had already piqued my curiosity. For one, I was fascinated by faces on the bus shuttle that took us to the hotel. I took mental snapshots of their eyes, brows, and involuntary hand movements, like how they scratched their faces. I witnessed how a man looked into his lover's eyes, or when their eyes met, how the women smacked their lips, squinted, smiled, or tucked their hairs behind their ears. How a small boy looked at his mother when she spoke, and how he smiled at her in response. I wondered how one could read the lips of someone speaking a language you didn't understand. But I also discovered that there were universal languages we all spoke, like the sound of our heartbeats, cold or heat, love or life or laughter. My boyfriend Maurice always told me that I romanticize my life. I told him that I like to take in the world around me to its littlest bits, but that sometimes I forget because of intense adulting. Finally, it seemed like my creative side was coming alive again. The world was my subject, and I was the artist, creating art with my words, either as poetry or creative nonfiction. So now I'm reading chapter 8, just a small part of chapter 8. Once again, I had managed to get myself entangled with awful tasting food. It was the last day before my parents continued their trip to London, and they had opted to rest in our hotel for the day. At about 5 p.m., my dad and I had taken a walk into the cold to a small neighborhood store where we were picking all the essentials we needed. We found some packaged meals. One carried the tag jollof rice, and the other was already cooked tomato-based pasta. There was no way I was going to trust the jollof rice, so I opted for the pasta and some shrimps while my dad had the rice. It looked like pasta and shrimps alright, but it tasted awful. It was either a terrible attempt at what it was trying to be, or my taste bud was just not in the mood to explore whatever foreign spices they used to prepare these packaged meals. As far as I knew it, whatever experiment they carried out with the spices should have ended in a lab. We had spent about 20 euros on it, and like a true Nigerian tourist, I converted everything to know their value in Naira. I tried using red wine, different kinds of chicken meals, and the emotional blackmail of how much money I spent on it to take it down. 1 euro was equivalent to about 420 Naira at the time, LOL. So not eating it meant that I was throwing 8,400 Naira away, and for some reason it bothered me more than it should have. Yet nothing worked. I took a picture of the disaster meal and posted it to my Instagram stories. I explained to my followers how much this reminded me of a failed relationship. You spend so much time, money obtaining it, build up anticipation and expectation to it, and do everything to try to save it, but it still doesn't work out. The one lesson I learned was that sometimes good things should be left in their most natural form. Jollof rice and pasta should not be packaged and put in molds, in the same way that oranges should have seeds. I was with my parents in their hotel room trying to find a distraction from the food when the breaking news popped up on the television like a tale of rapture. Notre Dame on fire. The news showed terrifying video clips of the Notre Dame ablaze as hundreds of firefighters tried to douse it to no avail. Its roof was on fire, together with the newly installed vaulted ceilings. The windows were burning and the spire had fallen. A day later, when the historical church had pulled in millions of euros from all around the world and the freedom fighters had kicked in to explain how there were more causes in the world that required the magnanimousness of the wealthy, especially because most of the building was still standing, I could see how it seemed like the world was overreacting to the fire. However, that night, it felt like the world was coming to an end as we watched it burn for hours unending. The medieval Catholic cathedral, whose construction began in 1163, seemed like it was going to burn down and take the rest of Paris with it. A part of history seemed to be going down in flames, and I was so close to it. It also didn't help that the cause of the fire was unknown for the first few hours, leaving the possibility of it being a terrorist attack open. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be happy that I at least got to see it for the first time just one day before the fire, and that I was in Paris when it was happening, or sad because a major historical monument had been set ablaze. I recalled watching the Hunchback of Notre Dame with my siblings while growing up, how Quasimodo held onto a part of the building and rang the bell. But I also thought about how much of a story it was going to be that I could say I was in Paris when it was destroyed. It didn't take long before my friends from Lagos started asking me if I was responsible for the fire. You just had to take all that heat with you, didn't you? One said. Thank you, so I don't read the whole book to you guys. You know how people say, write what you want to read? I think I did just that in this book. I wrote a story that I would have personally loved to read. I've read various creative non-fiction books before. I've read different memoirs. But for the first time, I have been able to put some of my own stories to words, and I'm so excited about it. And I hope that by the time you guys get a copy of the book, I will put the links to where you can order it from. I hope that by the time you read it, you'll be as excited as I was writing it. I can't read it anymore because I'm cringing badly, but I still think it's an amazing read. So thank you very much for spending time with me tonight, and looking forward to your reviews.